Okay, so I want to talk about a situation between my son this morning, okay, right? So this morning, like always, I get him up, he gets stuff together, and about 15 minutes before it's time to go, I always tell him and my daughter, to get your stuff together. So I did the same thing this morning. Time passes, I think what I'm doing to get my daughter together and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, all right, it's time to go. He comes down the stairs, no shoes, or nothing like that. Now, in fairness, we both forgot he didn't have his Crocs. So I'm like, okay, we'll go find some shoes to put on. That's another 5 minutes, looking for some shoes to put on. He comes back downstairs. He ain't got on no lotion. I'm like, why do you not have, put on some lotion? He got on shorts. He starts crying. He's like, he's walking up the stairs, and I'm like, put your phone down. So he like drops his phone on the stairs. I'm like, hold on, why are you crying? He's not answering like that requires an answer. Why are you crying? What's wrong? Finally, he answers, and he's like, well, first he's like, I don't know. I'm like, no, you do know what's going on. So he tells me basically, he's like, that I'm rushing him and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry that I'm rushing you, but I also told you in advance to go ahead and get yourself together. When you need to get yourself together, that means getting your shoes on and lotion and all that kind of stuff. And then also told him, I said, also, when I ask you what's wrong, don't tell me you don't know, because that is a form of lying when you do know what's wrong. You know exactly why you're crying. You're crying because I'm rushing you and you don't like to be rushed. Cool. He does it, we walk out the house, we get to daycare or whatnot, I'm talking to his teacher, not about that, but I'm talking to his teacher or whatnot, and I said, I asked him to come here, so I get a hug from him like I always do every morning. He comes to me, I'm like, I try to give him a hug, and he's like, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm like, I love you, have a good day. I'm going to his teacher still or whatnot, and the next thing I know, he comes to me and like throws on my back, and he's like, this is your hug for the day. I'm like, that's fine, whatever, I love you. He's like, I love you too. And then before I left the door again, he comes back up to me, and I forget what he said, but he told me that like I broke his feelings or whatnot. I'm like, that's what he says. I'm like, how did I hurt your feelings? And he was like, because you was rushing me, and I ended up having to wear these shoes, and yada yada yada. And I'm like, again, I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings, but I said, but son, when did I tell you to start getting ready? I said, you had time prior, so I wouldn't have had to rush you. I said, but you chose to not get ready when I told you to. I'm like, what were you in there doing? He's like, I wasn't doing nothing. I said, that's the point. When I said get ready, you chose to do nothing. You chose to not get ready when I told you to get ready. I'm like, what were you doing? I'm like, you on your phone because you played this game? He's like, no. I said, well, what were you doing? I was sitting there. I said, okay. I said, that's the problem. You chose to sit and not get ready when I said to get ready. So then in turn, it did cause me to make you rush. Again, I'm sorry for rushing you, and I'm sorry that it made you feel like that. I said, but you have to understand, you made a choice, and these are the consequences of your actions because you chose to not get ready when I said get ready, right? So he goes on back. But the whole point of me telling this is two parts. It's like, I believe in natural consequences, for one. I told him to get ready. He didn't get ready. It is what it is. He didn't get ready in time. So now his feelings are hurt because I had to rush him. But I also try to look at it on my side as mom to figure out what I could do better and or differently for next time. And so in my mind, what I'm going to start doing now is like, I'm going to take his phone in the mornings. I'm like, you cannot have your phone or turn the TV on until you are completely ready. Because this will alleviate me having to rush you and you getting your feelings hurt and us doing this back and forth. So just the whole point is to just think about things that you as a parent, again, can do differently, as well as telling your kids, like, hey, I get that I hurt your feelings, but you made this choice. You need to be held accountable for your actions. I'm big on that. I tell my time, like, I get it. Yeah, you don't want to be rushed, but I also told you in the time so you would not have to be rushed, and you made the choice to do something different. That was your choice. No one's in charge of that but you, and you chose that. So it has now led us here. So yeah, just a little story, conscious parenting moment as always, because self-reflection first, but you also want to teach. You also want to teach as well. So happy Wednesday.